Welcome to All Saints Catholic School, Key Stage 4 Subject Information Presentation. This presentation is about history. So if we examine the exam board now we use OCR History Specification B, Schools History Project. We look at the British history and we also have world history as well, and then a history around us, which is a local study site. We choose to look at the Tower of London and we examine it chronologically, examining how it's changed throughout time. In the thematic side, the British side of the course, we look at crime and punishment throughout time, and then we look at Elizabethan England from 1580 to 1603, so the latter part of her reign. In the world history, we look at the making of America and living under Nazi rule, primarily looking at what life was like for people in Nazi Germany, but also in Unit 5, examining what it was like for those in Europe and around as well that were conquered by the Nazis. So really interesting variety of topics and something for everyone, really. So the content of the course, so you have your 5 topics. For crime and punishment, it is taught chronologically. So we examine it by 4 periods of time: Middle Ages, early modern Britain, industrial period, and modern day. And in each of these periods, we look at crime, punishment, law enforcement, how it's changed, why it's changed, what factors affect the changes. So this is really interesting unit that we do look at. Look at questions and debates as to should capital punishment be banned, was it right for them to ban it, why did it last so long? And yeah, it's a really interesting topic and course that we do teach. This is paired and sat as an exam with the Elizabethan England, and this is taught via 5 topics and is personally my favourite of all the topics we teach. It looks at, could Elizabeth control government? How big were the threat from the Catholics? What was daily life like in Elizabethan England? How merry was England? So we look at things like witchcraft in Elizabethan England, we look at the theatres, we look at the beliefs of the Puritans, and then we look at exploring and adventuring. Where did England go? What did England do? So a really key pivotal time in England, and we look at how the impact that Elizabethan England, both positive and negative, had on England. We then by itself do a exam of history around us, which focuses on the Tower of London, and this is a really core important site within London, which is why we've picked it. We study it chronologically, examining changes to the site throughout time, significance of the buildings and why they were built, and why the Tower of London was originally built. So we're going all the way from the Normans to the present day. We then examine our final world study, is Making of America, which is taught in 5 sections, and this has newly been added to the curriculum. So this will be the 2nd year group to actually study it. We look at the expansion of America, we look at what it was like in the West, Civil War and Reconstruction, settlement and conflict on the plains, and then American culture between 1877 to 1900. So really interesting topic that we have introduced. And hopefully you will enjoy learning about it. And the final thing is life in Nazi Germany, 1933 to 45. How did Hitler get to power? How did Hitler actually control his people? So we look at terror and propaganda. What was the life like for people in Germany from 1933 to 1939? So we look at how could he indoctrinate the women? What policies did he have? Were they successful? Were they not? We then look at the war years between 1939 to 1945 and the impact the war has on Germany. And then we look at the impact Hitler's rule has on people in Europe, specifically in the war years between 1939 to 45, looking at things like the Holocaust, which you will have studied or be studying currently in Year 9. So some of that knowledge does correspond and come across. So we normally teach it that in Year 10 you will have studied crime and punishment, Elizabethan England and history around us. And then in Year 11 you'll study life in Nazi Germany and Making of America, which gives you a little, maybe a month or so, just slightly less to revise before your exams. So a range of topics, and hopefully you find them really interesting. So if we're looking at assessments now for this exam, the first part is crime, punishment, Elizabeth are sat together. It's 1 hour 45 minutes and it's 40% of the final mark of this paper. All exams are sat in Year 11. The crime punishment paper is made up of a 9 mark question, 10 mark and 18. It's all essay and knowledge based. So it's using structure, using your knowledge to formulate answers to the questions. On the other hand, Elizabeth is a source-based and interpretation paper. So it's made up of a 3 and 5 mark question based around one interpretation, a 12 mark question where you compare 2 interpretations and look at the similarities and differences, and a 20 mark question which is quite similar to an 18 mark question and is knowledge based. So this exam is a range of knowledge and source based and is sat together. Normally timings work 50 minutes for Crime and Punishment, 55 minutes for Elizabeth I, as the sources take a little longer to analyse. Your Tower of London paper is 1 hour, is 20% of the final mark, and it is made up of 2 25 mark questions. They will ask you, based on a criteria, about the Tower of London. For example, why was it built where it was built? And you need to explain. So it's 2 essay questions. Nazi Germany and Making of America come together, again 1 hour 45 minutes and 40% of the final mark. The Making of America paper is exactly the same structure as the Crime and Punishment one. So you have a 9, 10, 18 mark question. It is all about therefore knowledge. On the other hand, the Nazi Germany paper is again interpretations, a 7 mark source question, 15 mark question where you have sources and interpretations and you need to say how useful they are. And an 18 mark question is the same as it is in the Crime and Punishment paper. So you have a range of questions. The skills begin to overlap as you go through the course, and you will develop your essay writing skills, your ability to pick out key bits of information, and your ability to analyse sources and interpretations. So lessons are taught using second order concepts, just like we do at Key Stage 3, focusing around issues such as significance, diversity, interpretation, change and continuity, similarities and differences, cause and consequence. And these are the key ways that history and effective history is taught. Lessons are very similar to those of Key Stage 3, a range of activities, timelines, mind maps, spider diagram, video clips, tables to organise, sort information, role play, discussion, debates, learning through teaching each other, putting the onus on independent learning as well. So a whole range of teaching strategies are used as will be used at Key Stage 3. So the lessons are very, very similar. There are a few differences, although there is more of a focus on exam style questions and more practice of those, especially in time conditions. So various students have different experiences of studying history. Some really enjoy studying the Nazis, others different topics. But what a lot of students say is they like the variety of the different topics that they do study, and they're not all from one period, which is really great to see. Some students do find studying history quite difficult, more difficult than others, and depends on your work ethic. You need to work hard at history, you need to do your reading, you need to enjoy the subject to take it at GCSE. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to enjoy studying the GCSE. So it's a subject that you need to really, really enjoy, and it is very interesting learning about past events, learning about different cultures. But you need to work hard, you need to make sure you are doing your reading, you are completing questions that are asked of you in class, you are practicing exam questions. The content, there is a fair amount of content to get through, very enjoyable content, very interesting content, but you really, really need to have an interest in the subject to take it. History offers lots of future pathways if you are thinking about taking it on past GCSE, maybe into A-level, maybe on further to university. So just have a quick look at this page. It can get you into loads of jobs if that's what you're thinking about and the reason for why you want to take it later on. Things such as teachers, journalists, historians, archaeologists, lawyers are a key one as to why people use history, because it gives you skills of sifting through information, picking out key information and being able to form a judgment and being able to justify your judgment, which is really, really important. Economists, politicians, civil service. So you can kind of use history wherever you want to go in life and whatever you want to do. If you do need any extra resources, feel free to email me, mwhitfield@allsaintschool.co.uk. Otherwise, find a link to the exam board where you can scroll through, have a look at the exam board specification, and it links to assessment pages, so it links to papers that you might want to have a look at that might help you decide. Enjoy!